you joined us today for the Whole Teacher, Well Teacher Stress Management series. We're going to be focusing today on developing self-compassion. I'm Erin Kirby. I'm the induction specialist for Hamilton County Schools. And if you're anything like me, you're trying to work full-time and probably trying to take care of kids full-time at the same time. I've been trying to take care of a 6.5-month-old while sitting through a whole lot of meetings. So I think that, if you're like me, you could probably use a little bit of guidance on how to give yourself some and show yourself some self-compassion. So that's why we're here today. Our friend Jen Knowles is going to give us some amazing strategies and work through this with us. So I want to go ahead and stop sharing the screen now and turn it over to Jen. So if you guys want to click on speaker view, that would be awesome.
Yay, because you get to see my face up close and personal. And I'm in my bedroom, but you can't see my bed. So trying to keep it somewhat professional. Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here today. Just to give you a quick, I'm Jennifer Knowles. I do and lead and create the Whole Teacher, Well Teacher work for new teachers, and I work with lead mentors. I also work with Hamilton County in other ways. I worked for Hamilton County. I know a lot of your faces, so I'm just going to make that very brief. But my primary focus is wellness and mindfulness-based wellness. And so, yeah, self-compassion is what we're going to talk about today. And I'm going to try my best to keep track of time, respect your time, while also making sure that, you get what you have come for. And which I don't know what that is, but my hope is that it's to create some time for yourself to take care of yourself in this moment, but also things to take with you from here. So how this is organized, if you have not been a part of any of the series so far, the other two, we start with a sit, a couple of minutes. I will be guiding you with my voice the whole time. Then I will do a talk. And throughout the talk, I'll give you some processing time for reflection. This will require paper and pencil. You do not have to. Everything that I invite is an invitation. But I will tell you that having paper and pencil is very important because it's an opportunity for you to reflect effectively. When we put things on paper, it makes it more so, it builds into our memory. And so just keep that in mind. So we'll do a couple of practices throughout this time together, and then I'll end with some takeaways, just things that we practiced during this time, things that you can take with you. And again, all of it's a choice. And so at this time, again, we're going to start with a sit. This is a way to transition us from wherever you were to being here now, and just kind of giving you some transitional time from wherever you've come from. And so at this time, if you want, I see a lot of people turning their cameras off, so they've been here, done that. But this is a great time to, if you feel comfortable, having the camera on you while you're closing your eyes or gazing down and listening to my voice, that is perfectly fine. If you want to, at this time, take your video off so that you have a full feeling of safety for yourself to explore this time, then this is the time to do that, to take your screen off or stay on. It's up to you. And so I have my lovely bell here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start us off by inviting the bell. And I will get you settled first. And then as the bell sound goes, once it's gone, I will continue speaking again and guide you through this practice of just settling in. So without further ado, if you can just find a position that's comfortable for you at this time, and start to find some stillness, letting your eyes close. If you're not comfortable with that, you can let your eyes gaze down. And I will ring the bell, and when the sound of the bell is gone, I will continue speaking. So let's just start by noticing where we are. Where are you sitting right now? In what kind of chair? In what room? Just noticing where you are creates presence. And feeling yourself in your seat. Can you notice the weight of your body as you sit there? And start by listening to the sounds around you. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's the distant calls of a family or sounds outside of a window. Whatever it is, I invite you to stretch your mindful listening and just notice what you hear. And then we'll shift our attention to our bodies. Start at the top of our bodies, softening our forehead, our eyes. Noticing if your jaw is holding tension, can you let that go? If your tongue is attached to the roof of your mouth, can you drop it down? Just feeling your face fall down a little bit into relaxation and softness. Noticing your shoulders. If you're holding any tension there, can you just breathe into it? Notice it, breathe into it, and relax a little more. Noticing where your arms are resting, feeling the weight of them, feeling your back against the chair or just in the air. Is there tension anywhere or any other type of sensation, like hot or cold? Whatever it is, temperature, tension, can you take a breath, breathing into it? Softening your belly, feeling the weight of your body in the chair, softening your muscles in your bottom. And once we do that and soften our belly, notice if you kind of fall into your seat a little more. Noticing where your legs are. If your knees are bent, can you feel the tightness there or nothing at all? And noticing your feet. What sensations do you feel there? Temperature, tingling, pulsating, the floor beneath them. Just feel yourself weighted down a little more heavy wherever you sit. And then we'll shift our attention to our breath. I'd like to invite you to notice that as you breathe in your nose, it's cold air in your nostrils. And then a pause once you breathe in. And then as you breathe out your nose or even your mouth, it's more neutral or warm air. And then another pause. Can you notice with your attention, cold air going in, the pause, and warm or neutral air going out, and another pause for 5 breaths. If your attention wanders, that's okay. Come back to your breath. And at this time, you can just let your mind go wherever it wants. Just be free in your attention. Maybe noticing your body, continuing to notice your breath or even thoughts. I will leave you here for a few seconds and then I will ring the bell. And when the sound of the bell is gone, noticing with your attention the sound, we can come back into the room. All right. You can take a little stretch if you'd like. I do. It's good to move your body, especially go across your body. Oh my God, my back just cracked. It's really good for the left brain, right brain activity to reactivate your ability to be a listener in this way. All right. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you for being here. So I'm going to start off by asking a question to all of you. What if I told you that we can effectively engage with and accept all that we are with less judgment, less self-evaluation, and less self-criticism? I mean, I feel like that sounds like a pretty enticing opportunity we all need and deserve. And that's what we can do when we practice and understand self-compassion. So when we do this, when we accept all that we are, our good stuff, the easy stuff, the flaws, the suffering, all of it, when we do that effectively, strategically, we don't project as much of that onto others, all of our stuff. We're mentally healthier and more aware of how to take care of ourselves. And it's important to know yourself and not just the parts that are easy to focus on. We need to embrace our whole self. We can be anchored in who we are, like I said before, not just in the joys, but in the sorrow, and in the suffering. And we can develop this in ourselves, this ability to be with who we are, using awareness. I talk about awareness a lot. Honesty, vulnerability, and purposeful strategic practices like self-compassion. If you've listened to a couple of the other sessions before, a lot of what we talk about tonight or today, it's not tonight, I don't even know what time it is. If we start to kind of think about, if you've listened to any of the other sessions or ever been to anything that I've done before, or you've even had a conversation with me, a lot of the stuff that I talk about are building blocks, are threads that come together and work together. So like emotions, understanding and being aware of emotions is a part of this process. Being grateful, looking for the good, appreciating who you are and what's around you as a positive practice. That's also a very important thing to remember. And so you'll hear some of those common threads as I talk. But, again, it is really important to develop this sense of self, and doing that through strategic practices like self-compassion and vulnerability and honesty and awareness. And then we are better able to deal with setbacks and challenges. So I'm going to start us off about understanding self-compassion by talking about compassion for others, because I think we relate to that a little bit more. Many of you are familiar with compassion for others. Maybe even if you don't even realize it, you are a compassionate human being because simply what you do in your profession, in your helping profession. So when we show compassion for others, it looks like this. Compassion is recognizing or noticing someone else's suffering and wanting to help. Okay, that's kind of the definition of compassion, the willingness to help, and or the desire to help. And we have these feelings of kindness, and we open our hearts to helping others. And self-compassion is the same thing, except it's giving that gift to ourselves, which is, it sounds very simple. We notice suffering and we attend to it, but it's really not hard. It's not easy to do for ourselves. So self-compassion, again, let me reiterate, is our ability to recognize our own suffering acknowledging how hard it is in the moment, no matter what the scale of difficulty is going on for you. It could be something as simple as, I don't know, flipping your lid on your spouse, partner, children, to, like a lot of like toxic stress that's just kind of continuing. Whatever the level is, it's being able to honor that it's hard in the moment, and then extending yourself kindness, care, and warmth, so that we are able to give ourselves the grace that we need. And when we do this, we do lighten the load of our suffering. I'm not saying it goes away. And we're much more able to bounce back into the next moment with presence. That's called resilience. Resilience is your ability to bounce back into the next moment without carrying baggage with you, without carrying all the stuff that has happened to you in the day. And this is simply helping ourselves. We are all deserving of care. Now, and we don't want to ignore or suppress our pain, friends. And I know when something's naturally uncomfortable, our inclination is to back away from it. Your brains do that for you, is to just like, this is trouble, this is bad. We either need to like fight, we need to run, or, or don't do anything. And so when we do this, when we ignore or suppress, it shows up in other ways. So can we find ways to comfort and care for ourselves? And acknowledging that life can be difficult, because it is. And just another piece of information for you, resistance to pain, to suffering, to difficulty, to discomfort creates more suffering. And so how can we just kind of care for ourselves in a way that can take care of what we need in the moment, so that if there's more difficulty to come, we're more resilient for that moment. We're able to be for that moment, instead of just, oh my gosh, this has happened to me today, and this has happened to me, and this, and I'm not going to say that I haven't done that. I have done that. I am guilty of laying on my story stack of all the things that have happened to me. And a lot of that is because of I'm not being aware in that moment of what I need and how to take care of myself. I want to honor that I've said a lot here in the last couple minutes. So take a minute. I feel very strongly about reflection and giving some time to just kind of think about what was just said. So I'm inviting you now to take a minute to pick up your pencil or your pen, whatever you have, and write down what has stuck with you the most in what I just said and what we just did. Whatever is on your mind right now from all the things we just write it down. Take a minute or two, and you can, if you'd like, include it in the chat box instead, or also, but I'm going to be quiet for about a minute to give you time to process what I just said. This is also a good time if you have a question about something I asked, put it in the chat box if you'd like. Erin is writing in the chat box, everyone is deserving of self-care. That's what resonated with you. I love it. I want to make sure that we really process everything that's having, that's an offering to you and what I say. So I'm going to give you about 10 more seconds to just word vomit on a page, whatever stuck with you. It's a terrible description, but everything you just said, I need to read over and over. Yes. I'm going to be honest with you. I repeat myself a lot with little nuances of differences. And Erin can tell you that, or Jill Landtroop can tell you that. They're on this call. They listen to me a lot. I have to repeat things a lot because, hey, you know what? Old habits die really hard, friends. And we are very ingrained with what we know to do for ourselves, whether that's a good habit or a bad habit. So I appreciate that you're saying that Megan is saying she needs to read everything over and over again, listen to it over and over again. I am happy to give out my email. And if you need me to be like, Jen, I need a little check-in, I'm happy to give that to you because I love to be honest and caring, of course. So someone wrote that I relate to the part of projecting onto others. I'm always focused on what I didn't get to do or what I have to do. Yeah, I am too. It's hard to kind of not get overwhelmed by all the to-do lists, right? And I'm going to give you some strategies later about how to like some self-compassion statements that you can say. And I'm going to tell you, I put them in my house, sticky notes. I have a sticky note right here with I'm not even lying to you. I'm not making that up. I practice what I preach, which we'll talk about it later. All right. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to keep talking. I'm going to show you a slide just so you can have you don't have to look at me the whole time, to be honest with you. That's why I have slides. You don't want to look at me the whole time. And I got to keep it entertaining. I guess this is my way of being entertaining on Zoom. So there are 3 components. If you look at any kind of literature on self-compassion, these are kind of the 3 pieces that work together to create self-compassion as an operational practice. Things that we need to keep in mind and understand when self-compassion is a practice. And so they are, I'm going to read them backwards: mindfulness, common humanity, and self-kindness. I'm reading them backwards to you because for me and how I utilize and operationalize, meaning I put like it into a strategic practice, is in this order of being backwards. And I'm going to talk about each piece really quickly just to kind of help you understand how they work together. So I'm going to start with mindfulness. Mindfulness, in order to know that we need self-compassion, it is important and a non-negotiable to be aware of our unpleasant emotions and our pain that actually need the nurturing. So if I don't know when I need self-compassion, I'm not going to use it. So awareness, vulnerability to acknowledge the emotions that I'm having, the difficult emotions that I'm having is very important. And, we don't want to like over-identify or, get too involved in the emotions that we're having, but rather can we, and I say this a lot, observe them or see them as information. Sorry, my book is about to fall down. I'm trying to hold up my computer. Okay. To see these emotions as information and observe them rather than getting caught up in them or thinking this is happening to me, like this emotion or this experience attached to an emotion is happening to me. We can look at those things intelligently and productively. Oh, I'm feeling really angry right now, and here's why. Or this is anger right now, and I'm noticing that. Or frustration or resentment. Common humanity. This is the piece where this is the idea that we're not isolated in our pain and suffering. We do not have to feel like we are alone. We do not have to feel like we're the only ones who have ever had an experience like this. Suffering is part of the human experience. That's why there's the word human and humanity. And it's a way of normalizing suffering. So, just normalizing it. I don't really have much else to say. So it doesn't feel lonely, irreplaceable, whatever you're experiencing. And the last piece, the self-kindness piece, kind of comes along after the awareness. So can we recognize that we're not perfect? I don't know if anybody watched PBS special, but it was my favorite hashtag sign. I told my friends they could hashtag it, but perfection is boring. One of my best friends told me that, and I think it's like fabulous, and it's true. Can we see that we do not have to suffer alone? And can we be kind to ourselves rather than critical? And when we are kinder rather than self-critical, we're more open to possibilities. We're more open to growing and learning from our experiences and not being held back by them. And this element or component of self-compassion, it asks us to hold ourselves in loving kindness and be gentle in the way that we speak to ourselves and interacting with our negative, unpleasant emotions and experiences. And in a way, self-kindness is like a self-soothing technique. We're going to do a practice right now with these 3 elements or components of mindfulness. And so this is a 5-step practice. It's by one of my favorite self-compassion experts, Kristen Neff. So I am not going to claim it. I don't, I've done this. I've only practiced this practice with 2 teachers. They were my guinea pigs a few weeks ago when we were in school, and got some good feedback from it. So we're going to try it. So this is a journaling practice. And I'm going to walk you through the steps and give you like additional information about each step as we go through it, but you're going to need paper. Let me tell you why we're doing this, because you're going to see right now that immediately the first thing I'm asking you to do is write something that was difficult. What this writing exercise does is it helps us organize. I'm so passionate about this. It helps us organize our thoughts and emotions while helping us encode them into our memory in a way that feels productive, not emotionally taxing. And maybe you'll understand that on the tail end of this experience. But oftentimes when something unpleasant happens to us, it's just such a whirlwind of emotions. And even when we retell the story sometimes, it like reignites all the emotions. And so what this practice does is it gives us a chance to operationalize, to be observational with our experiences rather than caught up in it. So that when it's in our memory, it's there for a productive memory to pull up, not an emotionally reactive one. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing I'd like you to do, please keep this part light. Like we don't want to trigger any serious emotions here. It's just something that, happened recently that you're kind of beating yourself up over. So if you can write down anything that you've judged yourself for, felt bad about, or a difficult experience that caused you pain, just pick one or two. So for example, I went to CVS the other day and they told me I could only take one thing of toilet paper, and I wanted to get some for my mom because she can't leave her house. And I had a conversation with the manager, and she got mad at me, and I got a little frustrated, and I was nice, but I was sarcastically nice. So I wasn't really nice. And I was really frustrated about that with my own self. So that's my example, but go ahead and take some time to write yours on a piece of paper if you haven't already. And I want to tell you, the more you engage with this practice completely and fully, the more you'll get out of it. I say that about anything I offer. All right, I'm going to move on to the next step. So mindfulness, this is where the mindfulness piece comes in. So you're going to write about how you felt, the emotions that were involved in this. You can name the emotions. But as you write the emotions and kind of maybe even how they felt in your body, if you can remember that, we're trying to be non-judgmental, not belittling, not overly dramatic. If it's difficult for you to acknowledge the emotions, maybe you can just pretend like you're telling a story, like about someone else, but it's really about you. Sometimes creating that space feels safer to give more information. But just write down the emotions and what you remember about those emotions. Awareness. So I might say about mine that I felt a little foolish and overreactive, but also angry because I didn't get to do what I wanted to do for my mom. It was toilet paper, though. I mean, just saying. There was clearly other things going on there. Underlying stress of a pandemic, maybe. All right. I feel like I'm going fast, but if anybody wants to say slow down, Jen, in the chat box, tell me to slow down. But I also don't want to go so slow that people are just sitting there losing interest. So here's where the common humanity piece comes in. This is where you write down how your experience is connected to the larger human experience. This can feel a little tricky for some people. It could be as simple as something like everybody overreacts sometimes. When we are under serious stress of something bigger and out of our control, for me, I feel like people telling me no feels really more personal than usual. But that's what I think a lot of people are feeling. So spend some time around writing down how your experience connects to the larger human experience, and that people have these sorts of painful experiences all the time. And just, adding to what I did, putting the causes and the conditions around my experience with this humanity piece. Everybody goes through it. If you just have nothing else, you can say that. And then the last thing that I want you to do is the self-kindness. Well, that's not the last thing. There's 5 steps, but this is the last writing thing. Is to write down the words like of comfort. So you're letting yourself know that you care about yourself. Adopting a gentle and reassuring tone. So basically, what would you say to a friend? So I do this practice. So watch me, friends, what I say to a friend. See my hands out here to my friend. I should say to myself. So if it helps you to think, if I have a friend looking back at your steps, if a friend was here, what would I say to that person that I deeply care for? If that helps you, go ahead and do that. It's okay. You messed up. You lost your patience. I understand how you're feeling. Be very kind and loving in your statements. No worries, Tammy. We're happy you're here. All right. Here's what I'd like you to do as the last step. I want you to look back over what you've written and kind of observe. And I want you to think about how you felt at the time of the experience and how you feel now about the experience. Just thinking in your head about that. Just read back through as an observational perspective. And I want to just kind of share with you my personal experience with this. When I did my CVS story, I did this practice. I looked at it and I felt really bad about it. I was like beating myself up. Like, Jen, why did you lose your patience over toilet paper? That was so stupid. Like, get a grip. Inner critic, like just gnawing at me after I left CVS. And when I did this practice, like, even though it's still there a little bit, it's not as intense. My inner critic is gone, but I still kind of feel bad about what I said because I'm sure this woman gets berated on a daily basis because people can't take more than like a certain number of things. But I understood that I was really ultimately upset because I wanted to do something nice for my mom, right? So and that giving myself that grace, that it was coming from a place of care. It just came out in a way that sounded reactive because of my emotions that were running high. And so just being able to look at that from that way, it puts it into my memory in a way that feels productive so that I'm better able to understand, okay, there's a lot of context around what happened. And it's not as easy as I made a mistake and I now need to beat myself up over it. Okay. So I'm going to talk about how that could be a quicker practice in a little bit. But I want to talk about why we're hard on ourselves. So, we're naturally hard on ourselves. I don't know if you knew that. Just kidding. I think everybody probably knows that. One of the reasons that we're hard on ourselves is because, our brains do that for us. If we're not aware of how we react to our negative emotions, our brains will think you're in trouble and it'll just start going like 90 miles an hour. Doing all these things when we do not have mind control. Our minds have a mind of its own. And so when we do not have the ability to practice awareness and mind training there, it'll go crazy. But also because it's a way that we protect ourselves from other people's input and criticism. I'm guilty of this. I've done it before. This whole idea of like, I said it first. I know how I am. And so I'm going to beat myself up. I'm going to say, well, what's wrong with me before you get to say it. We use also self-criticism as judgment as a motivator. Like, I can't do this, but I'm going to keep pushing and keep pushing. And I think that, that's just not a way to live or sustain, to be hard on ourselves as a way to like push ourselves to keep going. It does not help our health either. And if we want to be able to sustain habitual change, acceptance, with less baggage, this is the kinder way to do it. so that we are more of who we want to be and who we are. And so I just want to talk about, before I end us, why I feel like self-compassion is important. And then I'm going to have you do another little minute to kind of process what I've said. Studies have shown that teachers experience high levels of negative emotions, unpleasant emotions, because they feel inefficient around the challenges of managing their students in their class. And a lot of you may identify with that. But the thing is that you have to give yourself permission. And I'm giving you permission. I'm begging you to take the permission that you deserve to build in self-compassion and kindness around the stress that you deal with every day. And a lot of educators deal with compassion fatigue, particularly for their students. What happens here is that we become overwhelmed by the pain and the suffering of what we see in our students. And we get caught up in it, and it drains our energy. And so how can we observe or lean into that without being exhausted by it? Being able to kind of control our mind and our thoughts and recognize the suffering in a way that kind of creates some space so that we can do that with more intelligently. And we don't want to become detached or uncaring. I'm not saying that, but there can be a balance here. And we can invite curiosity and kindness in place of harsh judgment. And this is wisdom, people. This is how we create wisdom. Wisdom is the best gift you can give yourself. Intelligence, wisdom, awareness. I also want to say 2 more reasons why self-compassion is important. It's a form of self-forgiveness. It's not about being free from accountability or responsibility. It's not about excusing behavior or denying that harm is being done by you to you, or harm that you do to others. It's just a form of letting go. And regret and anger that we hold on to as a way to punish ourselves does not change the past. It does not propel us forward. And so I'm imploring you to think about how self-compassion can help us have productive thought and reflection over rumination, which is obsessing, repeating things in our mind, beating ourselves up. And self-compassion is a positive practice. Negative emotions can help us in the short term survive. It allows us to let everyone around us know how we're feeling. It's sometimes relieving to blow up, to lose control. But these positive practices have a long-term effect on us. They don't drain our energy like harsh judgment and negativity does. Over time, that affects your health. And we can approach experiences with positive practices like self-compassion and looking for the good to protect your energy so that you are better for other aspects of your life, like your family and your friends and your pets and anybody else that you care about. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to ask you to write down anything that stuck with you. Again, take some time to process. I've just given a lot of information to you. So what is alive for you right now? You can write it on paper and or the chat box. Sometimes it's just nice to sit and be peaceful, huh? Yeah, so Aaron's saying I'm fascinated by the biological component. I haven't really even gone into the physiology of what self-compassion does to your body, but there is some research that shows that you're practicing self-compassion actually produces a different hormone in your body that is healthy and good for your body over self-criticism. Encourages a completely different hormone to be released into your body, which is more toxic. I'm going to leave it there, but yeah, Anna is saying she's not good at self-compassion. I'm so glad you said that naturally, because neither am I. I don't even I'm going to be honest with you. My inner critic was like, you have zero self-compassion a few years ago, truly. And a lot of us are not born with this ability to have compassion. We have to learn it. I had to learn it, not only for myself, but for others. I could feel sorry for somebody. I could show sympathy, but I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel this need to help. So, you know, I had to learn that. We have to learn some of these emotional skills. So if you're not somebody who naturally feels anything about what I'm offering you, nothing wrong with that. That's where I was, and still sometimes have difficulty with it. You can ask my husband. I know he loves me, but sometimes he, you know, questions that, when I'm not practicing compassion. And I'm so glad that people are saying they don't have natural self-compassion, because I'm telling you, I don't either. So I'm going to normalize that right now. It is just a practice you have to know. So let's go on to the last slide that I'm offering you today, which is our takeaways. A couple of things, the self-compassion journaling that we did today, I want to kind of offer it to you as a verbal practice. So if I don't have time to journal, I'm very passionate about that writing exercise as a way to like productively integrate that experience more positively. But in like quick times, I typically, if I lose my cool, like with my son, like this morning, I lost my patience with him because he was like, Mom, stop talking to me. You're stressing me out. Stop telling me what to do. He's 7. And that just, when people tell me, when these hands up, I don't like that. And so I flipped my lid on him, and I just had to put my hand on my heart. And I had to say to myself, like, right now I'm really frustrated and insulted. This is hard, and everybody loses their patience when they're working with their children, trying to homeschool. I'm doing my best, and I did a really good job of trying to maintain patience, even though I felt completely insulted. And just take a breath. And honestly, it just lightens the load a little bit. So you can do that as a verbal practice. One of my, somebody wrote, girl, me every day right now. Me too. The stop practice is one of my favorite practices. This is one of those things you can just put up a sticky note. I have to do it. I have to put it. I don't have it up right now, if I'm being completely honest, but last week I did, where my kids and I do work. So this is like a little practice of like being able to slow down and take a pause. So you stop, take a few deep breaths. You observe when you're feeling like difficulty. You observe your body and your emotions. So like, am I feeling like tightness in my fists, my heart beating fast? Is my face red, my stomach tight? These are places we typically feel anger or a nuance of it. And then observing the emotion. So I'm really angry right now. And then I have to think, what's most important for me right now to pay attention to? It's the fact that I need a break, and Aaron, my son, needs a break. That's what I need to pay attention to right now, because we're not going anywhere productively. And it helps make decisions that we're dealing with the reality of what's happening and not your own perception of it. Does this all make sense, friends? Okay. The last thing that I also use it as my favorite is some self-compassion statements. And I showed you mine up here to circle back to that. Hand on my heart. There's actually research around the idea of like physically touching yourself. That sounded really, let me rephrase that. Physically holding yourself in kindness by putting your hand on your heart or 2 hands on your heart. And then saying something to yourself that acknowledges this is hard and it's okay. So this too, I cannot claim that. That was another colleague, a mindfulness colleague of mine. But this was what this too stands for. It stands for that I accept unconditionally the unfolding of this present moment in whatever form it takes. And it's allowed and it's accepted. So it's just saying this too. It's just holding this difficult time in a way that feels kind and gentle rather than angry and resentful. My favorite one that I use the most is right now, it's like this. So the other day, my husband took a video. I don't know if it was from afar and the kids didn't know, but I had one kid crying on this side and the other kid crying on this side. They both were crying because they got in a huge fight. And I'm sitting on the couch, just like, I've just woken up and like, and I had to tell myself, like, right now it's like this. Right now, no, we're not happy. Right now, this is difficult. And I took a breath, and it really just helps you settle into your experience rather than denying that it has happened, getting irritated because I want it to be different. This is acknowledging the suffering in a way without getting caught up in it. And the last one is just telling yourself it's okay. So we're gonna end with 3 breaths. I want you to think really quickly about what you're gonna play with when you walk away from this time. And I'd like you to write it down. So, hey, Erin, can we go back to the 3 takeaways again, real quick? Because I want everyone to take a second. It could be one of these. It could be something I said. Whatever it is, I just want you to write down what you're going to commit to for yourself walking away from this time with me. When we write it down, we commit more. When you're done, can you just put your pencil down if you have it in your hand, or whatever you got in your hand, and pick up your phone real quick. Pick up the cell phone. If you got it near you, if you don't, go get it. And I'd like you to do the following. Okay, whatever you wrote down as your commitment, you're going to send yourself a little reminder. So this is what you're going to do. I don't know if anybody was in my session the last time. I made everybody do this too. But we're gonna do it a little bit further. So this is what you do. You hold your phone. Don't do it yet. You hold your phone and you say, I feel like people are gonna be like, duh. Siri, remind me in 48 hours. Okay, you're gonna say that, and then when she says, oh, what would you like me to remind you of? You're going to say whatever you just wrote down. If you did not write anything down, you better write it down, because if you don't flow with your words, she's gonna interrupt you and you have to start all over again. So you're muted. I'm going to watch people talking to themselves. So remind me in 48 hours, Siri. What do you want to say? Please remind me to use my statement right now. It's like this. Or if you just want to say in the chat box that you're going to commit to it without reminding. But remember, old habits die hard. Look at these people telling their phone, oh, I gotta be quiet. Siri can hear me. Or you can just type it in. I'm seeing some people type it in. That's also an option. I don't know how to do that. I have arthritis fingers, so typing with my thumbs is not okay for me. Nobody needs to know that. This is recorded. I don't know why I just shared that piece of information. Anyway, so now you can put your phones down, and we're gonna peace out with 3 breaths. If you'd like to stay for a Q&A for a few minutes, that's fine. If you want to peace out after our 3 breaths, then you can do that too. But yeah, Erin will open up the floor for a conversation afterwards. But let's just leave this moment with some deep breaths. So I'm just going to explain to you that a deep breath is breathing in, and your out breath is what is the most influential part of helping you feel more calm, is the out breath. So taking a deep breath in your nose and letting it out of your mouth. So you're all muted. Nobody can hear you. You can hear me. So it would sound like this. You can feel your body drop. So just go ahead and take a position that feels still. Let your eyes close or gaze down, and just take 3 breaths with me in this moment. All right, friends, go on with your day. Be kind to yourselves. You're all amazing human beings. I honor every single one of you.